Welcome to Rudetuna's Arcade. I'm your host RT, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Nintendo Entertainment System. A couple of games on there, basically all of their basketball games. Now, Nintendo back in the day, NES, and during the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo time frame, I'd say the NES had some standout hits with sports games, but when we went into the next generation with Super Nintendo and Genesis totally dominated the market with sports games. And some could even argue that the Sega Master System kind of won the war with sports games as well. But today we're going to be taking a look at the NES basketball games, and there's 9 of them that I'm going to be looking at today. And I want to go, I guess, rate them, 9 being the worst, and we'll stop at number 1 being the best. There are some good games in here, and some of them are just complete, like, never should have been made. I'm talking about LJN bad. So let's get into it, guys, and just take a trip down memory lane and look at what sports was like on the NES, at least for basketball. At number 9, we got the Harlem Trotters. Okay, now this game basically came out in 1990. It was made by Game Tech, and it was based off the Harlem Globetrotters. So what you're treated with at the beginning is one of the Globetrotters, and he just looks like creepy. He's sitting there spinning the ball. I like how they tried to put the spin on it. Now you have an option to play with the computer, and it says if you want to be the opposite team or the Globetrotters, how many players on your team. I guess you could play with somebody else. Back in the day, 2-player action. So you can pick the quarter length of the game. It gives you a couple options, but that's about it. There's no season mode or anything like that in this game. It's just straight up Globetrotters. It's just straight up one game. Now, if you look at the sprites here, I mean, they're pretty bad. Everybody looks the same. And I know a lot of games back in NES days, you know, I'll forgive that because, you know, memory constraints with the cartridge and everything not being that great. But these guys, they don't look like basketball players to me. I mean, look how the shorts right up in the guy's crack, you know. It's just, I know back in the day they had those Jack Tripper shorts, you know, back in the 80s NBA and even the 90s, you know, those shorts were kind of tight and kind of high up. But these look like they're wearing like, you know, boy shorts kind of, you know. And their hair kind of got that whole karate champ thing going. I mean, it's just bad. I mean, as far as the gameplay goes with it, I mean, when you got the ball, you really can't advance up to the net and, you know, dunk or anything like that, because it's like you run to the guys and they can steal the ball from you, but it's really hard to steal the ball back. And if you look, I'm trying to make penetration through, you know, the team, but it's like everybody's pick and roll is like ridiculous. They just kind of just hard lock you and you can't really get past them. And also what makes this game bad with the gameplay is the fact that if you're running with the ball, you can't really turn around. There's no animation for you. You just kind of move backwards, you know. And then when you're on defense, if the guy gets ahead of you with the ball, you can't switch characters. So you can only be one person. You know, like most basketball games, you can alternate between characters. This one you can't. So if the ball gets ahead of you, you're not catching up. You can't play no kind of defense. Not that it matters anyway. Another terrible part is the free throw. I mean, at the free throw line, you're moving around, you know, trying to get the shot. Traditionally, you stand in one spot when you shoot your free throw. I mean, not a big deal, but still all the same. I just find that kind of weird. And I think the worst part about this game is the music. Now, I'm all about Nintendo tunes. I understand basketball games back in the day and old sports games, they had music. You know, if you were around back then, you know, most basketball games, football games, they had some kind of music when you got the ball or whatever the case may be. Not like today where it's actually, you know, it sounds more like a stadium and stuff like that. But this music over and over here, take a listen. And you hear that theme every time you get the ball. I mean, it's enough to make your ears want to bleed. Now, one thing they did have in between quarters were a couple of cheerleaders, and they showed you your stats and the score and everything like that. I mean, nothing great, but at least it gives you something to let you know it's kind of a basketball game. And the cheerleaders, if you ask me, that's like the best looking sprites in the game. And that's just for a cutscene of animation. Overall, while this game is serviceable and it looks something like a basketball game, this is probably the worst out of all the ones we're going to take a look at. This is basically avoid this one at all costs. It's a total stinker. Next up, coming in at number 8 is Magic Johnson's Fast Break. Now you see Magic Johnson, you think this game might be halfway decent. No, this game is terrible. This was, in my opinion, kind of interchangeable between number 8 and number 9. Either one could have been bad. So you got a few choices here at the menu. You got 1 player, 2 player, or 4 players. So I'm guessing this game worked with the 4-player adapter you had for the NES system back in the day. So if you pick 1, 2, or 4, depending on how many players you're going to disappoint, because this game is bad. Now, one thing this game did have was sponsorship. You got Pepsi logo, and it actually does show the old school Pepsi logo during the game at the end. I mean, the character models, I mean, if you ask me, they look like I mean, they just look like, or they just remind me of, they just look terrible. I mean, these are probably one of the worst basketball sprites. I'd say the ones in the last game we looked at probably looked a little better, and that's not saying much. The basketball looks like a big Cheerio. I mean, because it kind of blends in with the screen, so it looks like a Cheerio, or they're bouncing a hula hoop or something. It looks bad. It doesn't even resemble a basketball. If you look at the lines inside the paint, there's just a solid circle, and that's not a big deal. I get it, it's NES graphics, but it's just so bad, this game. There's no music for it. Now, one cool thing, they got the ref at the bottom running back and forth. I thought that was a nice touch. The basketball hoop, I mean, if you look at that, it's just like, it looks like somebody just put a laundry basket up there. It looks so bad. And the gameplay, I mean, now, as far as the gameplay, I mean, it is serviceable, I guess. It does do some basketball, and it's only like 2-on-2. You don't get to play 5-on-5 like a traditional basketball game. But it does, the movement is responsive, I will give it that, but I mean, it's just bad. There's no dunk animation in the game, but I guess one good thing is you can turn around, so when you move backwards, your character's sprite does turn around and face the other direction. The way they dribble the ball, he's not really dribbling, he's just kind of slapping the ball. Just look at him, just top. He's not even dribbling, it doesn't resemble dribbling at all. I guess one of the only things I can say with the sprite design is they did pay attention to detail with the tube socks like they wore back in the 90s when they played ball, but other than that, graphically and the sounds of this game, it just, you steal the ball, it just makes that irritating noise. But outside of that, I think the worst part of this game is you get this creepy Magic Johnson head. I mean, and it just kind of pops up randomly. I mean, every time there's a violation foul, or if you hit a 3-pointer. I remember one time I hit a 3-pointer the first time I hit it, and that head popped up and scared the shit out of me. I was like, whoa. And he said stuff like, good job, and 3 and downtown, and he's just kind of, if you just look at the head, it's kind of weird, because if they had his body or a little bit of his shoulders, but it's just a head, and it's kind of like crooked. He has that long ass neck, and he's just smiling. He does have nice teeth. I will say that the man has nice teeth, but it actually, to be honest and to be fair, you can tell it's supposed to be Magic Johnson, but it looks more like if you cross Magic Johnson with AC Green. If you're an old school Lakers fan, you know what AC Green looks like. That's kind of what it looks like, because yeah, Magic's face was a little fatter. He kind of had that Ninja Turtle thing going, but this guy just looks like I don't know. It's just bad. It just pops up. He's just kind of lifeless, just smiling. Yeah, it's just kind of creepy. But yeah, and there's no halftime show for this game. It kind of just goes on. I mean, and the gameplay mechanics. I mean, you can kind of abuse this game. If you watch right here, I'm kind of just like ripping the guy a new one. Every time he throws the ball in, I just kind of like grab it and shoot, grab it and shoot, grab it and shoot. So there's really not a whole lot of depth with the gameplay, but it was the NES days. So this one right here, I'd say avoid this one at all costs. Definitely not worth a playthrough. Magic Johnson's Fast Break sucks. It sucks. Now in the number 7 spot in our countdown, we got Jordan versus Bird 1-on-1. Now this game came out on tons of platforms. A lot of PC platforms had it. I want to say Atari had it, and the NES had it. And this thing was made by EA, kind of had their hands in this game, and Milton Bradley. Now Milton Bradley back in the day was basically known for toys and board games. I heard Milton Bradley, I thought about a board game. But they made a video game, I guess. So this one came out, like I said, this one came out in 1988, and it features Michael Jordan and Larry Bird kind of in their heyday. When they're this is pre-championship Michael, but I mean, he was still a bad dude back then. And the graphics on this one, I don't know, that the opening screen looks pretty bad. Milton Bradley presents Jordan versus Bird 1-on-1. All right, let's take a look at this game. So you got a few things you can do in the opening screen. You got 1-on-1 full game, 1-on-1 15 or 11, warm-up games where you just kind of shoot around. And this one's not really, it's a basketball game, but not in a traditional sense. So I would have gave it lower ranks, because the way the game plays is terrible, but at the same time, I am giving them a higher rank up on the scale as opposed to the other two games, due to the fact that there is quite a bit to do in this game. Well, not a lot, but it's more than the other games. So you have the slam dunk contest. You can practice your dunks. follow the leader. You have a 3-point contest and 3-point warm-up. We'll take a look at all those real quick. Now, this is the game right here, and I feel like I'm Michael Jordan right now and Larry Bird. And again, they're wearing those boy shorts, and I guess, you know, back in the day when I was a kid, that's kind of how the players looked. They wore those Jack Tripper looking shorts from Three's Company. One thing I can say they kind of got right a little bit was, I mean, Jordan can shoot threes and stuff like that, but as we know, Larry Bird, that was his thing. And don't get me wrong, Bird could play some serious ball in the paint too. I mean, he just had a great shot, so he can do that shot. But don't sleep on Larry Bird. He was a bad dude. So these are probably the time the two iconic players of the league. Magic Johnson as well. You can throw him in the conversation. They did make it right to where Michael Jordan, his strengths were in the paint, dunking, and Larry Bird obviously shooting. The problem with it isn't the computer. Now the computer's Larry Bird. He never misses. And when I picked Larry Bird, when I switched off and played as him, I never missed either. Now I remember playing this game as a kid. It was just cool. That was kind of understood. Bird shot the threes. Jordan did the magic in the paint. But that's all they do. And during the game, you only have this one dunk. So the gameplay is really not that fun. So we take a look at the slam dunk contest. This was kind of cool. I thought back in the day when I played this game. You had a whole bunch of dunks you could do, and basically the computer would do it first. You could play with another person if you want, with just people, but generally if you play it by yourself, you can play with the computer. Basically the computer does a dunk, and then you can pick your dunk, or if you follow the leader, you have to do the exact dunk they do. And one of the bad parts with this is, if you don't watch the computer's example and the dunk he picks, you're not gonna know how to do it. Because back in the day, games didn't hold your hand. They just expected you to know these things, and there was no game facts, no internet that you can look on to find the answers. You just had to figure it out. So I thought that was kind of cool. You know, you can do all the dunks and you can get a score for them, and whoever gets the most dunks, you know, you can play with more people, and you guys can take turns alternating and stuff like that. So the dunking part, this was actually pretty cool, I thought. And one thing I'll give the game, it's actually pretty fluent movement. There's no slowdown. I mean, it looks like he's actually dribbling the ball and whatnot. So this was actually a pretty nice touch here. And lastly, we'll take a look at the 3-point contest. For the dunking portion, it's Michael Jordan, and for the 3-point, obviously it's Larry Bird. So they did a pretty good job here. I mean, with the 3-point shooting contest, it's kind of cool how you got the table right there, the ball table, where you can just reach in and grab the basketballs and shoot your three. And you have to manually move him around. So once you shoot all the balls, you got to move to the next area. The balls will appear, and just shoot them into the net. Try to get to the end, all the way around the half court, and shoot all the balls and get as many in as you can. So for what it is, I mean, I feel like it was I won't call it a true basketball game, more like a fun basketball simulator in a sense. Because, and one more thing with this game I forgot to mention is, when you're playing one-on-one with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, you can't steal. I mean, I couldn't figure out how to steal. I mean, I tried everything, and the computer never stole the ball from me. I never stole the ball from the computer. So, you know, maybe you can't steal the ball. I guess they just got that good of hands and got good of handles. So, but whatever. The music is in this game, as far as the music and sounds in this game, they're not too bad. I've heard worse. It's your typical NES stuff. So overall, not the worst, but I would consider it, if it was a niche back in the day in the NES for basketball, this wouldn't be my first choice. Next up on the list at number 6, we got Arch Rivals. Now, this one's not a bad game. The arcade obviously was much better, but this one came out at the home NES port in 1989. Midway, it was an arcade. It was a Midway game. And Acclaim made it for the NES. And Acclaim back in the day, and even nowadays, if they're even still around, I don't even know if Acclaim's even still around, but back in the day, LJN and Acclaim were notorious for making terrible games for the NES. But sometimes they did okay. This one, this isn't their worst game. This was actually, you know, for what it was, I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, obviously it wasn't as good as the arcade, but, you know, you knew you were playing Arch Rivals. It mimicked it enough to where you knew it was Arch Rivals. So this game was more arcadey in a sense, probably a precursor to what NBA Jam would become. And the graphics on it for an NES game actually aren't that bad. Now I chose to go with Chicago on this one, and the sprites look pretty good. They actually look like basketball players, and you can choose one of 8 players and make your team. And basically each one has stats, you know, telling you which one's a good shooter, which one's good under the paint and everything like that. So it's actually pretty cool, that part right there. Now, if you look at the screen right here, the sprites are pretty big. They got cheerleaders and stuff like that. It actually looks like a basketball court in a sense. I mean, it's short, but the net actually looks pretty good for the most part. I mean, the players, they look a little goofy, but I do appreciate the big sprites. You can't take this game too serious as a basketball game, because obviously you're just punching people in the face, which actually can be a lot of fun. Another cool thing with this game is they have sponsorship. Now, you've seen that British Knights. A lot of people, if you're younger, you might not know what that is, but they have made a comeback in recent years. They actually had a sponsor for the British Knight tennis shoes back in the day. High tops, I had a pair back in the day, and they were pretty freaking cool, if you remember these guys.
British Knight, get off on the right foot, get off and BK, get off and BK. Wherever you go, whatever you do, British Knights, the right move for you. Working or play, nighttime or day, make all the right moves, you and BK.
Now, one thing that I'd say this game does better than most, as far as the ones we've seen so far, is they actually look like they're dribbling the ball. And the fact that you got the little referee, little short guy walking around back and forth, I thought that was hilarious. And the fact that it's just cool to slug people, man. You can just slug people and no penalties or anything like that. And once you get the mechanics of the game down, it's a lot of fun, and it's actually pretty simple. And one thing I appreciate that's kind of refreshing, it does get annoying after a while, but at the beginning, all the cutscenes they got, they'll show the cheerleaders, they'll show the coaches, they'll show the staff and stuff like that. I mean, so I will say on this game, they did make an effort. Again, not the best of games, but I mean, I put it in because it's basketball, but at the same time, it's kind of an arcadey experience. Like most Midway games, when they make sports or anything, it's kind of that take. So that was kind of Midway's thing. And this game actually did have a halftime show with a lot of British Knights advertisement. And you got this creepy ass guy that's just sitting here at the announcer's desk, and he just looks like I don't know, like somebody's got him at gunpoint, or like he just shit on himself and just kind of just like doesn't want to get up and he's embarrassed. He just looks crazy. He has no eyelids, just a crazy looking character. But that was the charm of the NES back in the day. Now, one thing I'll say as far as music in this game, it's actually pretty good. And when you hit somebody on the court, I mean, it actually looks like the impact. It looks like you really did some damage. So good job to that with impacts and everything. The movement can get a little wild at times. It is a little flowy, like you're almost skating on ice at times, but for the most part, the game is serviceable and it can be for a little bit of fun. It does get repetitive after a while, but overall, not too bad. Next up on the list at number 5, we got Hoops. Now, Hoops was actually a pretty cool game. It came out in 1988 by Jellicoe, which they were going to make a lot of cool games for the Super NES when it came out later on, but Jellicoe actually made some pretty solid games back in the day. And they also made some pretty cool arcade games as well. Now, Hoops had some pretty cool stuff going for it. You could play 1-player, 2-player, and it was more like a street ball kind of game. So it wasn't really true basketball rules. Now, one of the cool features with Hoops was you had 8 different characters you can play, and each one had their weaks and strengths. And each one, which I thought was a nice touch at the time, each one had their own profile. I mean, it looks cheesy as all get out now, but at the time back in the day when I was a kid, my teens, you'd see it and it was like, oh, that's something. Each one's got a profile. And another good part was each character had an ending. I remember getting all the endings as a kid. What you had to do was basically face off against all the players, beat all the players on the court, and it had a password system back in the day. This one wasn't this cartridge wasn't battery operated like some where you had a battery for memory. Most of the games back in the NES era, they had a passcode you had to put in, but for the most part, it would be the passcode. You can remember where you were at, and the game and you can reload and continue where you left off. Once you beat all the players, you can get that character's ending. So basically, the game was like half court. You basically could shoot for the ball at the beginning or play around the world like horse, which gave you an option. Now, Hoops had dunking animations, and it played really nice. I mean, it was smooth, fluid motion with the game. And it gave you that sense of street ball. It had a tune that played over and over, and it could get annoying after a while, but if you got fouled or whatever, or you charged somebody, and there was a lot of fouls and charging in this game. Sometimes a little too much if you ask me. But for the most part, I mean, I love the way the game played, and I remember playing this game for hours and hours on end. It was just a really fun game. And you could play by yourself, and doubles were cool because you can mix and match the teams, and you can still get the ending of the game. So whoever you picked as your main player, that's whose ending you'd get. But it was pretty nice. It was half court. You had to clear the ball and everything. And for the most part, I think they knocked out the park with this one. This was actually a really fun game. This is actually a pretty fun game at the time. Graphics were pretty decent. Character sprites weren't that big, but at the same time, they moved real fluently. And it kind of captured that feel of street ball. There's a bunch of kids after school messing around shooting some hoops. So I thought this was one of the better games they had. Moving along at number 4, we got Ultimate Basketball. And this game right here, for me anyway, kind of slipped under the radar. I really don't know a whole lot about it. It was made by Sammy, and Sammy's gone on to make a lot of games, a lot of good games in the future. They'd go on to make some pretty cool games. One of my favorites being Hokuto no Ken Fist of the North Star, the fighting game, and a host of others. But this game came out in 1990, and actually the graphics are actually pretty good on this game, but it does come with a host of problems. Now, one of the reasons I put this game up a little higher than Hoops, you know, in my opinion, I thought Hoops was a hell of a lot more fun, but what makes this one, I had to put this one up because it actually services as a full basketball game. Now, it has hints, if you ask me, hints of the Sega Genesis games with the meter, you know, Sega Genesis sports games they had. What made this game kind of cool was the fact that you can actually pick, you know, you had a host, a roster of teams you could pick. They weren't licensed teams, but still it had teams you could pick. It had dunk animations, it had three-point shot animations, and it is reminiscent of one of the basketball games they had for the Sega Genesis with these same mechanics. Now, graphically, I feel like they look like wrestlers more than they do basketball players. You know, each one's like the Hulk, man. They got like, and they run around looking like they're all constipated, like their upper body is like ridiculous compared to their you know, lower body and stuff like that. I mean, these guys are just like, you know, bodybuilders out here, but you know, it is what it is. What falls apart with the game for me is I think if you play with another person, it might not be as bad, but playing the computer is relentless in this game. And I think it's just like lots of times when I inbound the ball, I mean, I don't even get half court without them stealing the ball. My player's throwing the ball in a weird direction. I mean, my player's just straight up losing control of the ball, and it's just really bad. I mean, you can substitute your players and stuff like that, but I didn't know that at the time because honestly, I hadn't even heard of this game. It just kind of, you know, was there. I mean, I'm guessing some kids played it, but yeah, this one slipped under my radar. The level of difficulty in this game is just ridiculous. I mean, you can't even get the ball half court. And by the end of the game, I mean, I think I had about 10 points to about 70. I mean, I got blown out by the computer completely, and I think it's on a regular skill setting, and there are glitches in the game. You can see right here, I mean, the collision on it's so bad, I'm just dragging the guy across the court. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think this game had potential, but you know, I think it just dropped the ball, no pun intended. It could have been something special, and I think when the Sega Genesis game came out like this, I think it knocked it out the park. They got everything right, but graphically I feel like the game's pretty good. I mean, I like the detail on the court and everything. I like how they got the lines on the paint, it looks pretty good, but overall, this game just seriously suffers from gameplay mechanics. As far as sound effects go, it sounds pretty good. The music kind of fits the theme and everything like that. But and another good part, they actually did have a halftime show, so we'll take a look at that real quick. I feel like the animations for the halftime show, the girls, they kind of look like either 70s anime chicks, more like I think Lady Haman from Gundam Wing kind of comes to mind. But don't get me wrong, Lady Haman was the shit, so I can go with that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this game. I mean, like I said, it had potential, but the gameplay mechanics, in my opinion, just kind of killed it. In the number 3 spot, we got All Pro Basketball by Vic Tokai. This game is kind of cool because it's kind of like Hoops. I'm guessing this is kind of a successor in a sense. I know Jellicoe makes Hoops and Vic Tokai makes this one. Maybe they had some kind of corroboration or something like that. But I mean, this game plays a lot like Hoops, but just more in the line of an actual real 5-on-5 basketball game. So when you start off right here, you can see the screen. New game to continue. You can actually see the Nike swish on the shoes. I don't think they had permission to do that. I could be wrong though, but you can kind of see, I guess copyright wasn't a big thing back in the day. They just did whatever they wanted, or maybe Nike did endorse them. I'm not sure, but you got a pair of Nikes sitting right there, even though Jordan's not in the game. And it gives you a host of teams you can pick. I think it's about 8 teams you can go through. They're not licensed players or anything like that, but you know, the fact that you got a few teams you can choose from. Now, one of the cool features of this game is actually there was NES's attempt at full court, but rotating full court. So with the graphics capabilities they had back then, or constraints, I should say. The court doesn't like do a whole 180 and turn around. It just kind of, and it can be confusing how they got it, because sometimes when you change sides and stuff like that, it kind of fades out, and then you're basically running in the opposite direction. So it can be confusing at times, but for the time, that was pretty cool. And if you look at the game, there's a lot of similarities between this game and Hoops, and the play mechanics are pretty much just the same. They have dunk animations like Hoops does, and the gameplay is pretty much spot on. What I did find with this game as compared to Hoops, though, is this game was a little tougher. Hoops was a little more arcade-ish. This one is still arcadey, but they do try to make it in line with more of a real game. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid attempt at a basketball game. You know, just think of it as like you're playing half court. But what they did, I mean, I feel like this was a pretty cool game. I didn't experience any slowdown or anything like that. And I feel like the music fit the theme. It could get annoying at times, like most NES sports games did. I mean, unless you had banger tracks, kind of like ice hockey. I did love the music in ice hockey, even though it was repetitive. But, you know, this game, it's okay. The music's not too bad. Now, you get to the end of a game. One thing I wasn't expecting was this creepy ass lady at the end. Her name's Tracy, All Sports News. And graphically, I think it's pretty cool. But that's the thing you see in your nightmares. This chick looks like she's dead, or like a mannequin or something like that. Again, I'll excuse it because it's NES graphics. At the time, this was pretty cool. But yeah, she looks freaking creepy. I mean, altogether. But it is a good thing if you actually lost this game, and actually goes over like a little briefing of the game. They start the season with a loss, and they actually got the coach right here on the bench looking crazy. So I thought that was a pretty nice touch they put at the end. But yeah, she just freaked me out. She's it looks like somebody, she has a black eye, looks like on one side of her face. I know they try to put shade on, somebody punched her in the eye or what, but yeah, that's kind of creepy. So that's pretty much it for this game. But overall, I feel like this was basically a decent experience, pretty fun game to play. Not number 1 or number 2, but a good runner-up at number 3. It is serviceable, in my opinion, as a functioning basketball game for the NES. Now, in the number 2 spot, we have Double Dribble. Maybe even Pro Wrestling, if you want to throw that in there. These are probably the most memorable sports games on the NES. So Double Dribble was actually, the NES version is most people's first experience with the Double Dribble franchise. I remember playing it in an arcade back in the day, but it wasn't really it wasn't as popular as, you know, other games at the time. You know, 1987, it was all about Double Dragon and stuff like that. But on the home front, Double Dribble was, you know, probably one of the best games or more popular games at the time. That one and Tecmo Bowl, of course, as far as sports games. So to a lot of people, this was a complete package because you had the opening scene with the national anthem, the crowds going in, and Konami was a top developer back in the NES days. They made hit after hit after hit. So you didn't have a full roster of NBA. You had a couple of teams you can pick from, but the game did, it did really well. I mean, you had the 5-on-5 basketball players, the basketball court, and this probably looks familiar to most people. The sound effects in this game was really good. I mean, as far as the dribbling the ball on the basketball court, and the infamous dunk. Now, one thing I'll say about the dunking animation, a lot of people, at least in my area where I lived at in the Midwest, people swore up and down and even lied and said you could. The rumor was that, you know, if you put the contra code in, or if you held a certain sequence of buttons, when you did your dunking animation, you could break the glass on the backboard. Now, that has yet to be seen on the home version. I've never seen anybody do it. I think it was just an urban legend that kids talked about back in the day, but Double Dribble was iconic. I mean, it doesn't even need an introduction. Everybody, for the most part, you know, you've played Double Dribble at one time or another. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, it had a lot of the stuff. It talked, you know, that was a big deal at the time. Any NES game that would talk was actually huge. The gameplay mechanics were pretty spot on as far as, you know, I mean, it had fouls, it had free throws, it had, you know, regulations were pretty much on point. And out of all the games, this one probably, the mechanics and the control response was actually spot on in this game. I mean, no hiccups or anything like that. And one of the things that were infamous for breaking Double Dribble, if you played with a buddy, was 3-point shots. I mean, it was like a infinite loop. Once you kind of got your characters, you know, kind of warm, you hit a few shots up front, and once they were able to, like, you know, fire off threes, you could stand in that one spot, either at the bottom or the top corner of the paint, and just unleash, you know, a barrage of 3-point shots. And people would get so pissed off at that. I mean, it was just kind of broken, you know, but it was a lot of fun doing it back in the day. And as you know, Double Dribble obviously had a halftime show it's infamous for. We'll take a look at that real quick. always thought the cheerleaders in the back during that ending were real weird because they just kind of jumped real quick, and it was just two animations, them jumping and them landing, jumping and landing, and I thought that was kind of weird. You know, they could have put another animation because, you know, it looks like if they miss, they're gonna break their kneecaps. But that was just an observation I had as a kid. But overall, Double Dribble, obviously NES classic, beloved by millions. But in my opinion, there was one game at the #1 spot that actually did play better than Double Dribble and was a lot more technical and more true to an actual basketball game. And obviously we're talking about Tecmo NBA Basketball. Tecmo, they just made, when they made games, they actually had the licensed players. And you know, at the time when Tecmo Bowl, you had licensed NFL players, and NBA was no different. You had licensed NBA teams with licensed NBA players, and that was a very nice touch they had, you know, putting all those players in and actually getting a full NBA experience. I mean, you had preseason, you could play a season game, all-star game, you can adjust the game speed, period length. I mean, it was just a total package of a game. And when you played through the season, you can actually simulate games if you wanted. You can actually pick one of your teams, kind of like it was kind of the precursor to what NBA Live will become in 2K further, way further down the road, like Dreamcast era. But at the same time, it was a pioneer, so to speak. You could actually pick your teams. I mean, you can go back and forth. You can pick the East or the West and stuff like that. And they had, you know, the teams there. It was just a total experience at the time. In my opinion, the best NBA game or best basketball game in general on the NES. I mean, the character sprites are huge. All the rules apply. The basketball hoop looks probably the best out of all the games. You can see all the logos on the basketball floor. You can see the paint. The paint looks good. I mean, they just did the logos of the teams. They did a really good job with this game, definitely. And what also was nice about this game is each NBA player, in my opinion, plays to his strengths. Like, I got the Bulls right now, and Michael Jordan, he's faster than everybody else. I mean, John Paxson, I mean, he's knocking out threes. You know, he's good at shooting the threes. And Jordan can still shoot threes. Pippen's good in the paint. I mean, and shoots a good three every now and then. So yeah, they actually played the characters to their strengths, you know. So I thought that was a very nice touch of them doing that. And also due to the fact that when you pass the ball to the player, if you look up at the top, you can actually see who has the ball, who's on defense, which player is being controlled, which one has the 1 and 2 over them. I thought that was a really nice touch as well. Every time you score a point, the names flash across the top showing you who scored the point as well as the score. So I mean, yeah, it's just a total package. I feel like in some ways, in my mind, this is probably the epitome of what the NES was, because this was a late game that came out in 1992. So yeah, hats off to NES for, you know, pushing the system's boundaries and producing this great game. So that's pretty much it with all the basketball games, guys. Some other people might put Double Dribble at #1. I feel like Double Dribble obviously is more memorable and a lot of people are more familiar with that game. But I remember back in the day playing a ton of this game, and then when they had a Super NES version, it was, you know, even that much better. So yeah, so that's my list. Let me know what you guys think. If you agree in the comments below, disagree with the order I put the games in. I mean, it's debatable. It's only a handful of NES basketball games anyway, so you decide which ones you like. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any more gaming news or gaming reviews on this channel. And with that, please take care of yourself, protect your inner peace, God bless you, and we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.